All right guys, today we're going to be talking about something that might come across as pretty basic, but it's extremely important because as much as we spend time riding our horses, we spend a lot of time with them on the ground, leading them to and from the paddock, and having the opportunity to work with lots of different breeds from, you get to Friesians, to Lusitanos, to quarter horses, to Mustangs. Like, you get all the different breeds, include the Arabians in there on the more sensitive side of things. You have horses that respond differently to pressure. And so when we get into the rope halters, when we get to talking about the different types of rope halters, we spend a lot of time talking about different kinds of bits, hackamores, and all those things, and we always take into consideration what is going to work best for our horse when we get to a bridle, but we don't spend a whole lot of time asking ourselves about the halter setup. And I was starting a Colton this spring with a friend of mine, and we actually had this really sensitive horse, and the halter that was just closest by was a relatively stiff halter that was next to his stall, and we got just a little bit into the groundwork and we realized, like, hey, that has a little bit too much bite. Is just a little more abrupt for this really green colt that hadn't had much handling. So we switched him over to a soft halter. And so I've got 4 different halters here that I'm going to walk you guys through. And it really depends on, it's using that discretion on what works best for your horse. But this first halter that I have here is a really soft, and it's a 3/8 inch halter. And so it's a really soft halter. You can see just by the way it maneuvers that it really conforms to their face. This is my personal preference and my go-to halter when I'm working with all of my horses. And so it's got a 1/2 inch lead rope that goes with it, and this is where I like to start a lot of my horses because it's not too abrupt, it's pretty soft, and it's just got the 2 knots on either side of it there. So this halter, 3/8 inch, and the reason, and I'll get into the thicknesses matter for all sorts of different reasons, and we'll get into that, but that's a 3/8 inch soft halter, and that's usually one that fits a majority of horses. If you have horses that's kind of middle of the road, one that's not pushy, and it really works for the sensitive horses. This is my go-to. Like, I have an Arabian in training right now. It's my go-to for an Arab horse because he's a little extra spry. If I put something super stiff on him, it'd be just like that green colt scenario. The next halter I have is just the exact contrast. This halter here was left at a clinic. It's a really stiff. You can see that, like, if I just hold it up, the other halter would fall apart. This one, it would hold its shape. The other one would kind of just drop down like a shoestring. And so this is a 3/8 as well. So the 3/8, you have the 3/8, and you usually have a 1/4 inch. So 3/8 being the bigger. This is a 3/8 inch, but this is pretty stiff. And this has just got the 2 knots on it. And this honestly is a halter that I've got a warm blood gelding in, and I'm not classifying all warm bloods in this category, but he is a bit pushy. And so with this halter, he doesn't get offended, it doesn't make him worried, and it does have a little bit more stiffness to it so that when the moment is that he is trying to be a little too pushy, you have what you need to then communicate with the horse saying, hey, this is what I need you to do. It'd be just like, this is a training aid. It's just like having a crop or having a spur. You don't just put any random spur on, and you don't just use a random length or a random width on a crop. You use something specific to what you're trying to get. That's the same thing with these halters. So this is a stiffer halter. This lead rope, I don't really do groundwork with it. This is just something we usually use to turn horses in and out. I prefer a 14-foot lead rope. This is probably closer to 10 feet. And so there we go. Now, this next halter was one. Now this is a very soft halter, just like the first one. You can see that if I were to hold it up, it doesn't hold shape. The other one stayed still. This one kind of just limps over. The difference with this one is this one's a 1/4 inch, so it's a bit more thin. It's an 1/8 of an inch more thin, and it's pretty significant when you go 3/8 to a 1/4 inch. When you start to look at that, it's a pretty big difference. Personally, we have these laying around the barn. We just use them to turn horses in and out. I don't usually use these to work horses or train them, strictly because when this rope gets this thin for me and you put it on your horse's head, a lot of times if I were to pick up the lead rope towards me and this comes across their nose, this rope doesn't have enough structure to it. It's too thin and it ends up rubbing them in the eye. So we have these halters. They're functional. I like to use them to turn horses in and out. But when we're actually training our horses, I find that they're just a little too thin and they'll just rub them up on below the eye because they move across their face so much. So, you know, everyone's got their preference. You know, everyone likes to ride in a different bit, a different kind of reins, and you know, these are all preferences. We base a lot of our decisions basically on what works best for the horses. Now, this halter has been around for a long time. I've had this particular halter that was given to me for quite a few years. There's a couple folks out there that are calling them new inventions. They're not. They've been around for a long time. And basically how this halter works, this halter itself is a 1/4 inch. It's got 4 knots, which personally I'm not a big fan of. I think that it just gets in the way more than it actually helps. But, you know, again, you got to fit the situation with the horse. And so, and this one's really soft. You can tell that it doesn't hold its own structure. It's a soft 1/4 inch halter. The difference with this one being that instead of having it all down to this one bottom, there's 3 different rings so that you could attach on an individual side. If you're looking at the horse's nose right here through the middle, you could attach what would be my right rein to here, and it gives you more lateral left and right. It's an okay concept. Everyone uses them for different deals, but it's just a different style halter. Honestly, with what we do as far as colt starting, working on groundwork, and even putting a horse into a hackamore, I think that using your regular style halter just from the bottom is a bit more of an easy transfer across. But of course, I have this sitting around because I might have a horse at some point that might benefit from a little bit more lateral on the halter. But I honestly knocked the dust off of it before we did this video. So guys, just a quick takeaway on this is, you know, there's a lot of different halters out there. There's a lot of different style lead ropes. You need to find something that fits your hand as far as your lead rope goes, and you need to find something that's going to be quality and last. All these halters we've had for years, and they've been on hundreds of horses, and they're very basic. You know, you're going to spend $35 to $50 on a halter and lead rope set, and if you take care of it, it's going to last you. But make sure you get something that fits your horse, and don't be afraid to have, you know, 4 different halters hanging up because you have different kinds of horses. And be cognizant, you know, put the halter on the horse that fits the horse. Don't just, you know, go grab a halter and then wonder why the horse is kind of being silly. You know, if you have a really sensitive horse and you throw a stiff halter on them and then you take a hold of them because they're getting too far in front of you and they overreact to it, you might have to consider that it might be because what you're using was a little too abrupt. It was the halter, or maybe it was how you did it. But use your halter, use your decisions on your halters to fit your horses along the way. It seems very, very basic, but you'd be amazed at how much it does make a difference. It can take a sensitive horse that gets a little worried about things, and it can really calm them down and build their confidence because they're not having to get defensive, versus putting a halter maybe on that's too soft on a pushy horse. When you have that situation, then, you know, a horse kind of learns to lean through it. Maybe you don't communicate, and then the situation goes on a lot longer versus being able to get in, get out, get it done, get your point across, and then take them back to the softer halter. But it's a training aid, guys. It's your halter. You probably spend more time using a halter than you do a bridle, so you might we want to put some thought in behind that thought process on how we select our halters and how we match it with our horses. So another tip to you guys from Colton Woods Horsemanship. Hope you guys found this insightful and helpful. If you did, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel down below. If you found this on Facebook, be sure to like, follow us on Facebook, Instagram. We've got our private Facebook groups we welcome you guys to as well. And then you can check out coltonwoodshorsemanship.com/video-library. And on there you will find a full length, over 125 videos, and continually adding to its completely free video library where you guys can get in quick tips on groundwork, philosophies and methodologies, approaches to how we train our horses, a hackamore horse series, bridle horse series, liberty work, colt starting, and the list goes on. So guys, appreciate you guys tuning in for another quick tip on choosing a halter for your horse, and we hope you guys have a great, blessed day.